Hey everybody, so this is Mr. Katz. I want to go through two quick things, and just for your homework, and hopefully you're watching this with someone else. I'm going to ask you to pause the video at some point and do a problem on your own. The first thing I wanted to go through with you guys is this. You had a quiz today, and one of the things that you had to do on this quiz was you were given a triangle, and this triangle, it didn't look like this, it was a much neater triangle, but it had sides 2, 4, and 6. And one of the things you were asked to do is tell whether there could have been sides 3, 6, and 9, and whether this would represent a new triangle that was a scaled copy of the original one. All right? So obviously this triangle got bigger because it went from 2 to 3 and 4 to 6 and 6 to 9. But just because it got bigger doesn't mean that it's a scaled copy. So one of the things that you had to do was figure out, are you multiplying the same thing to go from 2 to 3, or from 4 to 6, or from 6 to 9? And a lot of students had trouble with this. They said they could not figure out, like, are you multiplying by the same thing, and they got stuck. So I want to remind you that if you're ever wondering what you're multiplying by to go from one to the other, all you really have to do is divide the new one by the old one. So if you take this 3 right here and divide by 2, or you take this 6 and divide by 4, or you take this 9 and divide by 6, every single time you would do that, you would get an answer of 1.5. Now, all that means is that you're multiplying this side times 1.5 or 1.5 to get to the new side. So in this problem, you would have said, yes, this is a scaled copy because you're multiplying by the same thing. So you're enlarging it the same way. And that's all you have to do to find out what you're multiplying by. Just go ahead and divide the bigger by the smaller. So if I gave you a similar problem and I said that there was a triangle that had sides 8, 9, and 10, and then there was a new triangle that had sides 10, 11 and 25 hundredths, or 11.25, and 12 and a half, or 12 and 5 tenths. Could this be, I know it's getting bigger, but is this definitely a scaled copy? So what I want you to do right now is I want you to kind of pause the video and think about this and answer it out loud. And then you're going to go ahead and replay the video, hit play when you're done, and then see the answer. So hopefully you got a chance to pause the video, and here's the answer you should have said. You should have said that yes, this is definitely a scaled copy, because if you do 10 divided by 8, or this 11.25 divided by 9, or this 12.5 or 12.5 divided by 10, every single time you get an answer of 1.25 or 1 in 25 hundredths. That means you're multiplying every one of these sides by the same thing, and therefore this triangle is going to be bigger, but it's going to have the same angles. It is certainly going to be a scaled copy. All right. Now the next thing I want to review is something that we've done in class. This is kind of a review, but I want to make sure that your guys, this is the big thing that over the last couple days you should kind of know how to do. So I want to review it one time. Okay. You go ahead and looks like I can't go to that, so I'm going to go to this one. All right. So say I gave you a picture of Lafayette Square, and I said that you had to find the distance in real life from here to here. Now, what would you do? Now, one of the things that I want you to remember is you always have to look for a scale. Where does it tell you the scale? And hopefully your eyes went right to here. Now there's something I told you in class. This isn't totally clear on what the scale is, because there is a certain distance of the picture, but this tells you in real life that from here to here it's 200 feet. So the first thing I always want you to do is take your ruler, and I want you to actually measure from here to here and find out how far the distance is. Now, this is technically in your workbook on page 55, but I'm going to go ahead and measure it for you. I'm using a centimeter ruler, And when I do that, I get, if you go to page 55, you don't really have to do it, but you get about 3.1 centimeters, which means it's a little bit past the 3 on the centimeter side of the ruler. Okay? So the first thing I want to remind you of is you always want to write your scale down. So we just figured out that 3.1 centimeters in the drawing stands for, in real life, it tells you right here, 200 feet. And I always want you to write that down to help you. Now, again, now you get into a little bit of a problem in that you don't know what are you multiplying the 3.1 by to get to 200. And you always want to figure out what are you multiplying, what's the scale. And this is kind of like what we just did. How do I find out what I'm multiplying by? Well, we just talked about this. You said you take 200 and you divide 3 1/10. So on my calculator right now, I'm typing in 200 and I'm dividing it by 3.1. Now you get a really, really long decimal. So I'm going to round for a second. You get about 64.516. So I'm going to say that you're multiplying by about 64.5. Now once I know that, that means that every time I have the amount of centimeters, I'm going to multiply by 64.5 to figure out how many feet it is in real life. So now at this point, folks, all you have to do is take your ruler out and you measure how far the distance is. Now I just kind of made that up, but like let's say it was about, I'm looking right now at my workbook, and let's just say it's about I don't know, let's say it's about 4 centimeters. Well, if you want to know how far that is in real life, you're just going to use the scale that you just figured out. You multiply by 64.5. And 4 times 64.5 gets you 258. So that means in real life, from that point to that point, even though it's 4 centimeters on a map, it's 258, and don't forget to label it, it's in feet, because that's what it says. It's this map's in feet. So I just want to review that, remind you, so that you have that going into tomorrow. But I hope that helped a little bit, and I'll see you in class tomorrow.